Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley has secured the Democratic nomination for governor of Wisconsin over Democratic Socialist Francesca Hong. Crowley was ahead of Hong by roughly 3,200 votes when the race was called. And because Hong has now conceded, there will be no recount. Crowley's campaign manager wrote to supporters on social media thanking the other candidates. It reads in part, "From day one, this campaign has been about what comes next for Wisconsin, making life more affordable, strengthening our schools, creating good-paying jobs, and making sure opportunity reaches every corner of our state." The tight margin was a surprise, to say the least, given Hong's wide lead in polling that prompted other candidates to drop out of the race early on, including Crowley, who recently re-entered the primary with the backing of outgoing Governor Tony Evers. Hong, who has come under scrutiny for her past social media posts, including one that called for canceling Thanksgiving, addressed supporters last night before the results were finalized.
We have built a beautiful, multi-generational, multi-partisan, multiracial working class movement. And it is a movement that meets the moment. This is unprecedented here. And this is how we're going to win together in November and for Novembers to come. The fight continues no matter what. Because no matter who wins this primary, we're going to continue to fight for each other. We are going to collectively reject despair, and we are going to unite.
Crowley will now face Trump-backed Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany, who is a member of the House Freedom Caucus and voted against certifying the 2020 election. Let's bring in MS Now political reporter Hunter Woodall. Hunter, wow. So that result in Wisconsin, I don't think anyone was expecting. I mean, what does this election loss for Hong signal for the progressive movement from here?
It just tells us how much anxiety there was about the idea of a Democratic socialist being the standard bearer for governor in a state like Wisconsin. I mean, it wasn't so long ago. This state has had Republican governors. It's obviously, Donald Trump has won it twice out of his 3 presidential runs. There was all this tension about how do Democrats try and keep winning in this state? And the idea, Francesca Hong had really kind of honed in on this. Obviously, Wisconsin was thinking, okay, could somebody who has a non-traditional political background succeed here? But there was so much anxiety. I mean, just the idea that the incumbent governor, Tony Evers, like you talked about, worked so hard to get Crowley over the finish line. That just told you not just how much establishment panic there was, but just traditional Democrats thinking, is this really the way to go forward?
So what is the matchup going to look like when it comes to Crowley and Tom Tiffany in the general election for this gubernatorial race? What does Crowley have to focus on now?
This whole race really shifts now because obviously you saw Republicans. There was a certain eagerness to run against Hong. I mean, Tom Tiffany, like you talked about, 2020 election denier in multiple ways. And in a state like Wisconsin, a politically divided battleground, that would have been tough, for the general election population. Fox
News had Francesca Hong all over their banners and news segments constantly.
And that was an interesting thing. I spent some time with Democratic Socialists at a summit in Chicago recently, and there was, they're all a little bit worried about being considered like the weirdos of the political movement. But then you see some of these comments that Hong had made. That's just fodder for Republicans who are trying to, obviously, in a tough midterm environment, beat Democrats. And obviously, some of her comments really would have been a problem for Democrats in that general election.
Do you think that in general, incumbents are having a hard time, in these races?
It's so clear. I mean, and you and I have covered Washington for so many years now. It's this bizarre thing of incumbency used to be an advantage. And obviously voters, they have a poor view of Washington right now, even more so than I think they used to. And that's become an issue for incumbents as they try to not only win re-election, but also maybe go for higher office, go for senator, go for governor. And really, voters just have this strange view of thinking, okay, you were in Washington, I'm not happy with Washington, I'm going to take out my anger on you.
We want to get to some of the other primary results from last night. In Minnesota, the state's Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, a progressive, has won her Democratic Senate primary, defeating moderate Congresswoman Angie Craig. Flanagan had been endorsed by major progressives, including Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. In a concession speech last night, Congresswoman Craig urged her supporters to vote for Flanagan in November.
I just called the Lieutenant Governor to congratulate her on her hard-fought victory and to offer her my full and complete support going forward. To every person that supported me, I ask you tonight to support and elect Peggy Flanagan as the next U.S. Senator from Minnesota.
And in the race for Minnesota governor, the state's House Speaker, Lisa DeMuth, defeated My Pillow founder Mike Lindell to win the Republican nomination. This marks a rare loss for a Trump-endorsed GOP primary candidate, but many Minnesota Republicans had voiced concern that Lindell, a 2020 election denier, would struggle to win over independents and moderate Republicans in November. DeMuth will face Senator Amy Klobuchar, who easily secured the Democratic nomination for governor last night. And in South Carolina, Senator Darlene Graham and Congressman Ralph Norman have advanced to a runoff in the state's crowded Republican Senate primary to replace the late Lindsey Graham. The August 25th runoff will almost certainly determine South Carolina's next senator, as no Democrat has won a U.S. Senate election in the state since 1998. Just a month ago, Graham, a private citizen who had never held an elected office, was appointed to finish out her late brother's term. Now, she's looking for a full 6-year tenure and has leaned heavily on President Trump's support. And in Connecticut, former Hartford Mayor Luke Bronin has defeated incumbent Congressman Democrat John Larson, who is seeking a 15th term in office. This race had been dominated by debates about generational change, with Bronin calling on Larson to pass the torch. Larson's loss marks the 12th congressional incumbent defeated in a primary this cycle. So as we were talking about, incumbents are having a hard time, like Larson. But I also want to focus on the Trump-backed candidates. So we saw that Mike Lindell lost, an election denier, as well as Tom Tiffany, who won. But Mike Lindell lost. Graham, in the bid to replace her brother, also supported by Trump, but is in a runoff now. So what do you think this means when it comes to the president's endorsement of his candidates?
It's been such a strange thing this season because while the president has done well in endorsing and trying to clear primaries for, you think of Senate and for congressional seats, governor's been a little bit of a mixed bag. I mean, you think back to Iowa, right? He endorsed Randy Feenstra, the congressman for governor. Feenstra ended up losing in a huge upset in the primary a few months back. It's this odd thing where obviously Republican primary voters, they're willing to follow him quite a bit of the way when he picks somebody for Congress. Governor seems to be a bit of a different thing. You talk about Lindell. I covered Minnesota for years as a Washington reporter for the Minneapolis Star-Tribune. Lindell is the definitive 2020 election denier, and Minnesota Republicans, they're fairly pragmatic, but they also do have those fringes that can be more harsh. They try to marry that together, obviously, and it was interesting seeing that performance because Lindell, you normally think, with the president's support, would have been able to win that primary. But obviously, in a race against Amy Klobuchar, I mean, that would have been a huge potential win for Democrats.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that election deniers are going anywhere, given what we've seen come from the president. And Mike Lindell, I think, was not necessarily accepting the election results.
Well, and is that surprising at all? You know what I mean? You think of how Lindell has been over the years, and you continue to see this strain of election denialism on the right. And obviously, that can be a turnout issue. How do you get Republicans to vote in these elections when you have all these candidates still questioning results or relitigating 2020?
When you look at on the Democratic side, the way the races, these primary races shook out last night, what's your biggest takeaway?
Democratic voters, they still continue to be upset. There's still this anger, but there's also maybe a sign of that pragmatism because obviously Democratic Socialists, they had a strong summer by winning in these reliably blue parts of the country. Wisconsin, totally different story. Now, obviously, the establishment, the more kind of center-left folks obviously had to do a lot to defeat Hong last night. I mean, you had candidates dropping out, getting back in, dropping out amidst controversy.
spending more money.
It was just all over the place, right? And obviously, this idea that Democrats had to do all this to just keep a Democratic Socialist from winning a primary does tell you things are weird on the Democratic side right now. And there's clearly an anxiety about, is this going to be a turning point or is this just an early stage of issues?
And lastly, just back to South Carolina for a minute, because again, Darlene Graham was supported, full-throated support from the president, but again, wasn't able to win it cleanly last night. What do you think she has to do moving forward?
So she'll go to this runoff, right? And this will be, a one-on-one match on August 25th. Against Ralph Norman, the GOP congressman, very, far to the right, but also has run for governor, is a little bit on the older side. Honestly, it's going to be this interesting thing of how do you both show that you can, be Lindsey Graham's heir apparent in this role, but also be different enough for voters still side with you rather than thinking, oh, I'm just signing up on another, term of Lindsey Graham.
Right. And she, in some areas, is more supportive of President Trump than Lindsey Graham, like on the filibuster. MS Now political reporter Hunter Woodall, thank you.